know. And I started doing it, and I'm going to start breaking it now. I'm not going to do it.
From sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
I mean, nothing wrong with it, but it's just, I caught myself. It's kind of like, you know. You know who uses Hillary Clinton more than anybody else uses, you know? It's Hillary Clinton. Great to have you, folks. Rush Limbaugh, 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, it's Open Line Friday. And that means that anything you want to talk about is fair game. That's not how it works Monday through Thursday, but it is today. We have very few restrictions on callers. See, there's no First Amendment here either. You can't say whatever you want, and nobody has to hear you say it. I am a benevolent dictator of sorts. But that's what Friday's all about. Hillary Cookie has sent me the audio soundbite roster with the headline, "Time for you to analyze yourself" on Hannity. She says, you know, you play audio soundbites all day long from other people and you analyze what you hear. She said, you need to analyze yourself. And I'm thinking, how self-indulgent can you get? Here I am playing audio sound bites of me from the Hannity interview last night and then commenting again on how brilliant it was. And now more about me. If that hasn't been enough of me for you, because there's going to be more of me tonight on Hannity, let's replay me from Hannity last night while I tell you what I thought of me. And Snerdley thinks it's a great idea. Well, maybe so. I'm still pondering it. But there are some other reactions to people. Well, I don't know. According to the advanced overnight ratings I'm hearing about, it may be very few who did not. Snerdley just said, not everybody saw Hannity last night. But I understand that that's probably true. There are other people reacting. Newt was just over the top complimentary last night, but then dialed it back a little bit this morning. Not much. It's fine. Everything's okay. They got Bernie Goldberg in there and Mike Huckabee responding, and I find it fascinating. Like, they ask these people, so what do you think of Rush just said there? And you can see they're steaming, some of them. Well, I've been saying that for years. And I'll be happy to repeat it to you again. It's fun. Anyway, it was a great time yesterday, and I know there's another night coming tonight. Probably going to be some stuff from last night repeated. They're cutting it up. It's not being presented in the order it happened, which is fine. It's not a criticism. It just means it's harder for me to remember what has aired and what hasn't. We will get to that. I'll tell you what's really noteworthy to me today. We'll get to Trump selling the tax cut. That's big. That's getting some momentum. The Democrats are trying to connect Trump to the ongoing so-called failure of getting aid and relief to Puerto Rico. And that's going to bomb. You know, it's starting to happen. And I think it's been happening for a while. The left does not innovate. If there was one thing, the Democrat Party, let me specify it. The Democrat Party does not innovate. They don't have any innovators, and they don't have any forward thinkers. If the Democrat Party produced a smartphone, it would still be 30 years old. And the only thing that would change in it is the numbers of people that you can call. They really don't innovate. The way they're going after Trump on Puerto Rico is a replay of how they went after Bush on Katrina, which is a replay on how they went after George H.W. Bush on Kuwait, which is a replay of how they've gone after Reagan for not caring about it. It's just a replay. They just go to their playbook and repeat things that in their minds have worked very well, and they try to adapt them to modern era, but it doesn't work, and it's all falling apart. The same thing with the NFL. That is falling apart on them. Trump is being proven a winner on this. They don't want to admit it. The NFL doesn't want to admit it, of course. But if you look at any number of indicators and any number of teams now saying that, I mean, they're announcing in advance, hey, we're standing on Sunday. The Steelers, we're standing on Sunday. Drew Brees, New Orleans Saints, came out and said, we're going to do both. We're going to kneel and then we're going to stand. That, I predict, is not... Like I said last night, the NFL is making a tactical error here, and maybe even strategic. And I think corporate America has been doing the same thing. Corporate America, the NFL's in that world, gets caught up in media, and they see everything through the lens of media, as most people do. But the picture of America that the media paints or broadcasts or portrays isn't accurate. And let me give you an example. I hearken back to this all the time because to me it's one of the best. Mike Pence was governor of Indiana, and they passed a religious freedom restoration bill because in Indiana people were being prevented, they were being protested, they were having trouble expressing religious freedom, which is granted in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So what Governor Pence, the Indiana legislature, did was pass a state law that basically reaffirmed it. They found it necessary to do so because not enough people knew that religious freedom was guaranteed in the First Amendment of the Constitution. It cannot be abridged. But there were ongoing protests and other hassles that were being visited upon Christians in Indiana. So they come up with a religious restoration bill. Well, immediately the media tried to portray the state of Indiana as homophobic and racist and bigoted. And you remember, the media went all over the state, knocking on doors of businesses, asking if they could ask. They were trying to find a business that would admit that it would not cater a gay wedding. If it was a pizzeria, if it was a bakery, if it was a photography studio. And it took them 2 weeks. And they found a little pizzeria in a small town in Indiana. And the daughter of the owner was 21 or 22, and they run into her shop with their cameras and microphones and ask her if a gay wedding asked you to cater their reception, would you do it? And she said, no, it's a violation of my religious vow. And they were off and running. So they found one example. The coverage of the whole incident in Indiana was made to look like Indiana was an outlier, that the rest of America sees Indiana the way the media was portraying Indiana, as backwards, as Christian, as restrictionist, as exclusionary, as racist, as bigoted, as homophobic. So now if you happen to be a corporate CEO, a titan of industry living in Montana, living in Arizona, living in Texas, you watch this, and you might be forgiven if you believe that the media portrayal, the narrative here is right. In other words, I think that a number of people at institutions, corporate leaders, have mistakenly bought the media narrative of where American culture is, and they believe that American culture is moving left, and it is in certain spots. That, I'm not denying that they believe that American culture all is united against Christian conservatives. In other words, the people the media portray as enemies is made to look like everybody in America thinks so. And you can see when you look at corporate marketing, how they choose to advertise and sell their products, you can tell who they think their audiences are. And I believe in many cases they're missing the mark. And I think the NFL is one of these corporate entities that's missing its mark. I think there are people there who really believed that sideline protests of the flag and disrespect for the flag and the honoring of Colin Kaepernick was going to improve their image. Why would they do it otherwise? Why would the NFL purposely engage in activity if they knew it was going to be harmful? Now, wait, there are institutions that are doing that. ESPN is continuing to lose subscribers, and yet they are continuing to take action and implement policies that will guarantee the continued erosion of subscribers. While saying they're not a political organization, they've gone all left all the time. Do they know that they are offending a great majority of their audience? Do they not see the cancellations of subscriptions to cable TV and online? What if they do? Then what explains why they continue to do this? Well, what explains CNN continuing to do what they do when they stay in 10th place? Why? Why doesn't CNN adapt? Why does CNN? Well, part of it is niche advertising and pursuing a niche audience and trying to own all of it. But another aspect of it is, I guarantee you that CNN believes it's hip. CNN believes it is where the majority of thinking is. It's just taking a while for people to admit it. And CNN's going to be loyal to the cause no matter what. They'll go down with the ship. They'll go down with the flag. If liberalism kills CNN, if CNN dies as an entity, because they'll go down the ship with it because they're loyal to the cause. Is that the NFL? Is the NFL so devoted to a political ideology that they will willingly allow the product to suffer just to stay loyal to the political ideology? I don't think so. We're already seeing the league try to backtrack. Big meeting yesterday. And you know the thing that came out of that meeting? There were owners in the meeting, there were players in the meeting, and NFL execs, commissioners. You know what the big thing to come out of the meeting was? Have you heard? The big thing to come out of the meeting was they all agreed that this approach, that it's the players and the NFL versus President Trump, has got to stop. Why? Because they're losing it. They didn't think they were going to lose this. When owners and management promote, and that's what they were doing, that's why I was sad. That's why I was despondent on Sunday and Monday. When the owners, when the league officials, commissioner and his executive team, when they tout this public display of anti-American symbolism, which they did, they all lined up with the players and they all touted what the players were doing and they all said it was about unity when it's not. It's about division. They lined up against their customers and with their employees. And I contend to you they did so for a number of reasons. A, they rolled the dice. They'd much rather lose the fans, what they think is temporary, than have the players walk out. So the owners, they were scared. They had to side with the players on this. But the league did too. But in the process, they went the wrong way. They went down the wrong path. And all the polling data shows it. And you can see now by the league trying to backtrack and all these teams announcing there will be no city. We're going to stand, not all of them, but those who are making a big deal of it. Now, the point in all of this is that I think a vastly incorrect picture of America is portrayed and painted by the media each and every day, and unwitting people who otherwise it's smart and intelligent in their own right believe it. And it makes them make incorrect decisions. Climate change is another example of this. Climate change is not happening. But if corporate America thinks that a significant percentage of America believes it's happening, they'll market to it. They'll do whatever they can to separate people from their dollars. But it isn't working. A majority of Americans do not believe America is destroying the planet, because in every one of these left-wing issues, guess who the culprit is? America. America's racist. America's unjust. America's destroying the planet. America is creating havoc around the world. America is this. America's wrong. America's evil. America's mistaken. People have had it. They're fed up with it because the majority of Americans don't believe that, will not believe that, and don't want to be made to believe it. And so they're reacting now in numbers. that look like they're a surprise, because the media has made people believe that that is a very small percentage of our country, when what we're learning is that it is a majority. So it's all good in this sense, but I'm still amazed at how easy it has been for people to make these powerful entities misjudge. Now, folks, look, it could well be, too, in some of these examples that the CEOs and the boards of directors are full-fledged libs, and they're going to be loyal to that no matter what, and they're going to take it as far as they can until economics dictates they back off of it. I mean, there's also that possibility, too. Bottom line, the country is not what the media portrays it to be. The country and its cultural values have not yet been erased and destroyed. The founding ideals, the founding principles, the traditions and institutions are not yet the minority of thinking in this country, and yet so many entities seem to think that progressivism has become the majority of thinking and acting and behavior in the country, when it isn't. Largely because the media makes it look as though that's hip and that's cool, and traditional American values are uncool and unhip and nerdy and what have you. Let me take a break. We'll come back. We have much more straight ahead, as always, here in the EIB Network. Using things 30 years old. They're just adapting issues, but they're not adapting techniques. Here's an example. It's not the best, but it's an example. They brought back Will and Grace on NBC. They're going back to the glory days of Thursday. If they could bring back Seinfeld, they would. They went back, Will and Grace. What do you think they did in the opening? And I didn't watch it. I am reading a report. It's exactly right. It was an anti-Trump bash fest. Make America Gay Again was the theme of the Will and Grace show. Now, it's going to find an audience, obviously, but this is the way the left innovates. Go back, get something from the graveyard of forgotten favorites, and try to adapt it to modern times rather than innovate. And it's what they're doing. In their opposition to Trump's tax plan. There's no new innovation in their reasoning. Their reasoning is formulaic. It's from 30 or 40, 50 years ago now. And it doesn't matter what the details of the tax plan are. They have a way of trying to stop it or defeat it that is imminently predictable and ought to be completely ineffective because it's so tired and worn out. But that will only happen if opposition rises to it and creatively tries to push back rather than the usual defensiveness. More coming up, folks. Hang on. On September 21st, 25% of Trump supporters said they had a very favorable view of the NFL. 11% had a very unfavorable view. So September 21st, basically 8 days ago, 25% Trump supporters favorable NFL, 11% unfavorable. Yesterday, the numbers have dramatically changed. 33% of Trump supporters now say unfavorable view of the NFL, 16% favorable. So the favorable has fallen 9 points, and the unfavorable has gone from 11 to 33% in just a week. What's happened in that week? The NFL has appeared on television and in the media to be defiant of the concerns of their fan base. They've been very vocal. They have been very defiant. They have continued to talk about their unity, which isn't unity, it's division. And I think they probably would be shocked. Maybe not now, because I think the NFL is starting to exhibit signs that they understand it. But in their view, they've got a real balancing act because these players are off now on this. They're into it. And the league is between a rock and a hard place. They can't just replace. I mean, in some cases, players are a dime a dozen, but star power isn't. So we'll see how this manifests. I mean, here's a story that dovetails precisely with my observation that the Democrat Party and the left really are having trouble innovating. Don't misunderstand me, by the way, folks. I'm not saying that they're wilting away, fading away. They are still a powerful force led by the media, and they still have the ability to entirely misrepresent anything they want and have a lot of people believe it. Don't misunderstand. I'm talking about opportunity here. You know me, I'm always looking opportunity. I'm always looking at things optimistically. Like I do hope that this NFL stuff can be erased. It may be the first time in any issue that we'll be able to totally erase. But if the NFL hopes to become what it was, and who knows, maybe they don't. Maybe they're run by a bunch of people that themselves are social justice warriors. I don't know. Frankly, I have been stunned at how the NFL has chosen to respond to this concussion business. I have been shocked at how they've chosen to respond to that. I mean, we're watching a concerted effort to destroy this game take place. And the people running it seem to be strategically thinking they have to cooperate with it. And by virtue of that, they acknowledge some of the allegations and then claim they want to work with those attacking them to try to straighten this. It never works out that way. You give an inch to the people that want a pound of flesh, they're going to keep asking, taking, demanding. I'm stunned at this. I really am. I used to think that these people in these leadership positions were brighter than everybody else. I admittedly was younger and more naive. I used to think these people were really smart, that they were there because they were smarter than average, and they were in these positions of power because they knew how to protect and grow their enterprises. But as more and more people have come under I call it the spell, the education of liberalism and the corrupting effect and impact that it has, I sometimes wonder, are there any adults left? Are there any mature adults with the confidence to reject that which seeks to destroy who they are? Big oil has gone through it. Big pharma has gone through it. Every big corporate concern is under constant attack and has been. And watching them navigate it has been fascinating. Some of them have failed big time. And the NFL is one of these things that I hope gets its act together at some point. Now, this story is at thehill.com today. Here's the headline: Democrat addiction to Trump attacks gives party cause for concern. So what do we have here? We have a story in thehill.com, and they are waving a white flag at the Democrats. They're trying to get their attention. This is a case of the media trying to tell these Democrats, wake up. What you're doing vis-a-vis Trump is not working. Democrats are linking Republican gubernatorial candidates to President Trump in New Jersey and Virginia, two states won by Hillary Clinton last year, where the attacks could drive base voters to the polls. But some Democrats are concerned about this strategy. Even if Democrats win these two races, they say it could give the party a false sense of confidence that attacking Trump is the best way to win the House and Senate in 2018. Well, that's the only thing the Democrats have, folks. They don't have an agenda. If they did, Hillary Clinton would have been all over it. You see, actually, they do have an agenda. They just can't tell you. They're all for sanctuary cities. They're all for amnesty, mass immigration. They are all for the grievance industry. They are all for granting whatever grievance any minority group has. They are all for putting together a coalition of minority group after minority group to wipe out the white working class voter segment. They did it starting in 2011. They've gone down the tubes with it so far. Another great example, by the way, of how they have an erroneous idea of the makeup of this country. It was an active Democrat Party decision led by Obama in November 2011 to stop campaigning for the votes of white working class Americans. They made an active decision to punt and rather seek a giant coalition of every minority group you can imagine, create as many victims as they can, set themselves up as the grand saviors, paint the conservative Republican segment of the country as the devil, as the enemy, as the people who do not want them to have equality and do not want them to have sustainability and who are destroying the planet. Well, we see what happened to Mrs. Clinton. She couldn't run on that agenda. No Democrat can. So what did she do? Trump is unfit. Trump is dangerously unfit. Trump is unqualified. Trump's a pig. Trump's this, Trump that. She loses. She loses in an electoral landslide. She's still so shaken up, she's still campaigning for herself while out there ostensibly campaigning for other Democrats. And they wish that she would leave the stage. She's nothing but a big negative, but she won't leave the stage because she still thinks it's hers. And so now we get this. Democrat addiction to attacking Trump gives party cause for concern. Meaning there are Democrats think we got to come up with something besides attacking Trump, and that isn't even working now. But all this time they thought it has been because of their buddies in the media. All this time, for the last year, they really believe that they have succeeded in delegitimizing Trump by linking him to this Russian collusion story. They live delusions. They live lies. They create them, they invest in them, and they live them. And they think they're winning. They think they're turning back the tide, while Trump is marching on and winning and growing. Trump's support base is growing. You'll never see that reported in the media. Can't dare, but it is. You might even say that Trump's on a roll right now, and you can tell he knows it by just watching him in public with his rallies and his appearances, his attitude, his level of confidence. And they've thrown the kitchen sink, and it hasn't worked, and yet that's all they're planning on doing now. Their technique for winning in New Jersey and winning in Virginia is to link the Republican candidates to Trump, when most of them don't even like Trump. Most of them are Republican establishment types who don't want to be linked to Trump. Mistakenly. But that's all the Democrats have. They can't innovate. The point is they are for a united, coordinated attack. If the Republicans in Congress would just seriously get together and start advancing all of the Trump agenda. 3 months, just 3 months. The appearance of that unity, the appearance of that work, the appearance of that effort could result in the Democrats being out of power for a generation. Just 3 months. More months would be better, but 3 months is all it would take. Right now, the perception is that the Republican establishment, primarily in the Senate, doesn't want anything to do with Trump and doesn't want Trump to succeed. Speaking of that, folks, I made that point on Hannity last night, and I am just now being made aware of how that has caused a major eruption reaction out there. Apparently, people left and right are being asked about it on Fox and various websites, and it's interesting. I mean, it's true. The appearance is that the Republican establishment doesn't want Trump. Well, we know they don't. They don't want any outsider to succeed. But that must have hit a nerve out there because I'm seeing more and more news stories on it featuring reaction. The media's gone to Congressman A and Senator B. What do you think about what Rush said on Fox last night? That's the Senate. That's not us. No, that's not me. That's somebody. No. So they're disavowing it in certain quarters. Let me take a break. It's Open Line Friday. We'll come back, get started with call. Certainly, yes, I'm going to play the sound bites from last night. I'm just establishing that the show is not all about me all the time. That's all I'm doing. We're going to get to those, and I'll analyze myself. Collusion between Russia and Trump to rig the election is false if he will be granted immunity. Assange says he will open up. He will prove that Russia had nothing to do with any of the documents leaked to WikiLeaks and were published, Podesta's emails, essentially, and other things. Ready to provide evidence that the Russian collusion narrative is false if he will be granted a pardon and can leave the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK. Fat chance. Okay, starting with Luke in Charlotte, North Carolina. Luke, great to have you on the EIB network. How are you?
Hey, Rush. Dittos. The reason I called you was last night, it was a terrible night. I sat there and I did not turn on, for the first time in 60 years of my fandom, turn on the Bears-Packers game. And I used to play for the Little Bears in Chicago. I actually played at halftime during the Bears game at Wrigley Field. That's how old I am. And got to shake Papa Howell's hand. And I've been a diehard Bears fan. And if they're losing people like me, they're so upset, so angry, so frustrated, then I can't imagine how many people are tuning out.
Why? Look, the answer may be obvious. I just want to hear you say it. Why do you not watch?
It just, you know, I'm a veteran, okay? That's one thing. And I've devoted my life to service in one way or the other, and to the country, and to see that disrespect and this holding arms thing. I was telling Bo, I said, you know, this holding arms thing is not a compromise. That's an act of defiance. It says in the protocol for the American anthem, you stand at attention, you place your hand over your heart, and you show respect.
The problem is,
and locking arms is an act of defiance.
That is exactly right. This linking arms thing, it did not work in Green Bay. The fans were shouting, USA, USA. They did not link arms. Their star quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, asked the fans to join the players and link arms. That's not how you honor the national anthem and the flag. That's not how you do it. The league, folks, the NFL is 75% African American. The players in the NFL, by any objective comparison, are wealthy. They are stars, they are celebrities, and many of them are hero worshipped. Many of these players are popular beyond their wildest dreams, respected beyond their wildest dreams. There is no oppression in the NFL. There is no racism in the NFL. It's quite the opposite. And so, overt, in-your-face America bashing in front of America-loving, big-spending customers isn't sustainable. The league simply cannot sustain itself if its players are going to engage in this kind of behavior, because I don't care what they say, by doing all of this on the stage, the playing field is a stage. It is owned by the owners, in some cases public financing of stadiums, but if they're going to take the stage and engage in activity that makes it look like they have grievances, what are people going to think their grievances are? They're going to think the grievances are the league. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this to the NFL? Why are they doing with this, messing with this stuff on the sideline at NFL games? People don't know Kaepernick. I mean, they do, but they're not going to sit there and put it together that the players are in solidarity with Kaepernick. And by the way, the players are now all backing off. It's not about the flag. We're not protesting the flag. We're not. Well, then what are you protesting? It doesn't matter what you say. We know that you align with Kaepernick, and we know what Kaepernick said. Kaepernick specifically said he was protesting the flag. He cannot honor a country and its flag that treats people of color this way. There's all so much revisionist history going on here. But just the picture of these players acting as aggrieved victims or malcontents, it doesn't fly. Because nobody has ever said the NFL discriminates against them. Nobody has ever said the NFL is a racist organization that needs to be changed. Nobody has ever said this. And yet that's where these protests are taking place. So the protests are actually harming the NFL. And it is my contention that that is the objective. People on the left, nameless, faceless people, have a desire to inflict great harm on the NFL for reasons I've detailed before. The players, I believe, are unwittingly, some of them know what they're doing, of course, there are exceptions to everything, but the players are unwittingly being duped into this thinking that they're engaging in activity promoting solidarity and unity and diversity, and that's not how people are seeing this at all, and it's patently obvious now. This isn't sustainable. Overt, in-your-face bashing of America in front of big spending customers, it isn't going to work. You can't sustain this. You may think I'm overdoing this, but I'm not. There's just like in climate change, in fact, maybe everything the left holds dear and wants to achieve is wrapped up in that one issue. If they get it, it's major, major damage. This NFL thing, not quite that comprehensive, but this is huge. This is an all-out assault on the American national pastime is what this is. And it's frustrating as all get out for me to see the people that run the game go along with it. Because they think everybody in the country is a bunch of snowflake, liberal wusses. They think the country's gone over to whatever it is progressivism is, and it hasn't. They're making tactical marketing mistakes. They're making very big mistakes in judging who their audience is. And they're helping this plan to damage the NFL. They're helping it along, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I love it. And I wish it would. It's not going to stop. You can't say, I wish it would stop. That doesn't work. You have to beat it back. And in my own small little way, it's what I'm trying to do here. Colin Kaepernick, his own words, all this started a year ago. Why is it, by the way, that the United States media stops everything and wants to make a hero out of people that talk this way? Why does the American media want to make heroes, unassailable heroes, out of malcontents? We're not putting people in jail in this country illegally. We're not starving them. We're not doing what happens in tyranny, authoritarian dictatorships. Why do we have to be treated as though we live in a place like that? We don't. It's the greatest place on earth. Why do malcontents who have a personal grievance and then blow it up into something that's irrelevant to the problem they're having? Kaepernick can't get hired because he can't play. It's no more complicated than that. In the sports media, everybody, you must hire Kaepernick to show that America is just and fair. Why? He can't play. For crying out loud, media, if he could play, he would be starting somewhere. NFL teams are as competitive as any entities in the country. If they thought the guy could help them win, he would be there. Unless because now hiring Kaepernick would be one of the biggest mistakes anybody could make, because it is clear the Kaepernick-led anti-NFL protests aren't working. They are not growing the game. The American people don't think the NFL is an unfair, unjust, and illegitimate entity or place. They revere it. They look up to it. They love it. Everybody'd love to be in the NFL one way or the other. And they don't understand malcontents who want to take a grievance they have against a country and turn it into harm for the industry that made them wealthy or gave them a chance at it. Here's what Kaepernick said. I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder. I will guarantee you that's about Ferguson. I will guarantee you that's hands up, don't shoot, and that's Baltimore, and all these other places the media lied to everybody about what was going on. He believes it because he trusts the drive-by media. There are bodies in the street. Mr. Kaepernick, I'm getting tired of pointing. Go to Chicago if you're worried about bodies in the street, and it isn't the cops killing people there. But now the players are saying, as these protests are fizzling and not working, we're not protesting the flag. We're linking arms for unity. Unity against what? What do you mean unity? Well, we're linking arms for diversity. Diversity, you got plenty of it. The league's 75% minority. How about that? The league is 75% minority. Run the numbers on that. 75% of the players in the NFL are African American. Diversity? By the left's definition of diversity, the NFL ought to be a model organization, no problems whatsoever, because they keep telling us that the strength of America and the value of America is found in her diversity. Well, NFL, 75% African American. As far as the left looks at it, you can't get more favorably diverse than that. So what's the grievance? The grievance isn't the NFL. The grievance is an opportunity to bash America by forces on the left, which are populated in the drive-by media and every other institution in this country. Well, most of them. And that's what's happening, what's occurring. No, we're not protesting the flag. You aren't. You're taking a knee when the anthem. You're not protesting the flag. No. We're linking arms for unity and solidarity and togetherness and so on. Anyway, flips me off. I'm just telling you. Audio sound bites. I want to start here with Trump. Numbers 20 and 21. Trump was in Washington, the National Association of Manufacturers. He went out to pitch his tax cut idea. And I want to play these two before we get into excerpts of my interview last night with Sean Hannity, which start with the tax plan. So here's the president, first the two bites, just this morning.
The single best tribute to our workers can be found in the unmatched quality and craftsmanship of the amazing products they bring, from the blueprint to the storefront. Made in the USA is a global symbol of unrivaled excellence. My administration is working every day to lift the burdens on our companies and on our workers so that you can thrive, compete, and grow. And at the very center of that plan is a giant, beautiful, massive, the biggest ever in our country, tax cut.
And the applause went on. Here is Trump emphasizing the, I'm not going to characterize it. You just listen to it yourself.
Our framework also provides relief to those who care for an older loved one through a $500 tax credit, something that everybody has been wanting so badly for so long. By eliminating the tax breaks and special interest loopholes that primarily benefit the wealthy, our framework ensures that the benefits of tax reform go to the middle class, not the highest earners. That's why we also have given Congress the flexibility to add an additional top rate on the very highest income earners to provide even more tax relief for everyday working people.
All right, now I'm sorry, I can't. That doesn't equal growth. If this tax plan is about growth, this is the surcharge. Let me go through this. Our framework provides relief to those who care for an older loved one through a $500 tax credit, something that everybody has been wanting so badly for so long. By eliminating tax breaks and special interest loopholes that primarily benefit the healthy, our framework ensures that the benefits of tax reform go to the middle class, not the highest earners. That's why we've also given Congress the flexibility to add an additional top rate on the very highest income earners to provide even more tax relief for everyday working people. That's just another way of saying we're going to levy a surcharge on the top 1% in order to help pay for tax cuts for everybody else. Now, that's Democrat Party language. And I know, folks, that there is no way that anybody is going to succeed defending the rich. I'm not doing that. I'm not defending the rich. I'm actually defending the concept of economic growth. That's what the proponents of the tax plan say that it is, and its purpose is. And if that is the objective, you're going to have to cut taxes across the board. You can't leave out people who hire. You can't leave out people who invest and grow things. But furthermore, to try to attract support for it by blaming all this on the fact that the upper bracket isn't paying enough, that's the kind of language that might bring the Democrats into the fold on this. But nobody ever succeeded in defending the rich when it comes time for tax cuts. It never worked. Most people don't even try. And that's not what I am doing here. I'm very uncomfortable with this whole idea that the tax cut has to be paid for. Why does it have to be paid for? If we're trying to stimulate the economy further, we need to actually put more money in the economy. The way you do that is take less out of it. The way you do that is you cut everybody's taxes. You know, every dollar the government takes is a dollar taken out of the economy. And every dollar taken out of the economy is a dollar that cannot grow. If the government is holding it, it cannot grow. Government doesn't create wealth. The government redistributes wealth and destroys it, but it does not grow it. If you want the economy, some people call that the private sector, if you want that to grow, you have to leave money there. It's like Obama's stimulus. There was no stimulus. Obama, the media, the Democrats wanted everybody to believe, hey, you know what? We found almost $1 trillion over there in the Treasury. They were just sitting in an account. It wasn't being used. So we decided to take that trillion and grab a syringe and just inject it into the private sector. That's not what happened. There isn't $1 trillion sitting around somewhere. There's not $500 billion sitting around. We're $20 trillion in debt. There isn't any money sitting around. For Obama to get that stimulus, let's call it $1 trillion, that's rounded up, he had to take it from the private sector in the first place. It was a net zero wash. And that's what was there any economic growth at all to speak of during Obama's 7 years, 8 years? There wasn't. The reason we're having growth right now under Trump is attitudinal. The Trump agenda, the promises of tax cuts, the promises of getting the albatross of health care fixed, the prospects of limiting illegal immigration in the country, not putting pressure on Americans in the job market, all of these things led people to a more positive attitude, which led to what we now have is a second quarter growth rate of 3.1%. Obama never saw anywhere close to 3% in 8 years. But we were growing 7, 8% in the 80s. And we could do it again, but you can't do it if you take money out of the economy and give it to government. This is populism. This is telling the middle class the only way that we can give you a tax cut is by not giving a tax cut to some of your fellow citizens and raising the taxes of others of your fellow citizens. That's the only way we can do it. And so the people getting a tax cut, well, then you go right ahead. If the only way I can get a tax cut, you got to take it from somebody else, then you go right ahead. That's populism. That's not conservatism. And it continues the myth that all money is Washington's and none of it is yours. And what you end up with is through the good graces of government policy. But it continues the myth, well, it's not a myth, it continues the notion that all money in the country is owned by Washington, and what you end up with is the result of government policy. And so you are campaigned, you are persuaded to support government policy that allows you to keep more of what you earn. But now we're running around talking about the rich don't need any more relief. They don't need it. I don't need it. In fact, we've put flexibility in there so Congress can actually tax them even more to ensure that you get your tax cut. Pits people against each other, creates class envy. It's unfortunate. Take a break. We'll come back and continue. after this, my friend, babe, the numbers are down like 11%. That may be the wrong number. I just glanced at them. But the Thursday night numbers are down over a year ago, same game a year ago. If CNN thinks that most Americans think Trump is wrong to criticize players, then why is any of this happening? Why are advertisers backing out? And why are people not watching? And why is attendance down? I want to go back to this, the last thing Trump said in that second soundbite. That's why we also have given Congress the flexibility to add an additional top rate on the very highest income earners to provide even more tax relief for everyday working people. This is not, folks, I'm sorry, this is just not right. And it's not necessary to sell this. This is how Democrat presidents sell this kind of stuff, and they sell it as a tax increase on the rich. That's how they sell it. They never sell tax cuts because they don't believe in them. So when they want to change tax policy, they lead with punishing the rich, raising taxes on the rich. Nobody gives Congress the flexibility. Congress owns the flexibility. Congress, the constitutionality of generation of revenue, tax policy, spending all originates in the House of Representatives. Nobody gives them flexibility other than the Congress, unless the Congress willingly sacrifices its power, which, when the Democrats ran Congress, they gave up all kinds of power to Obama because they don't mind dictatorships and authoritarian figures when their side's running things. If you really want to pay Mr. President, for this tax cut, then start cutting some agencies. Get the government smaller. There's overpopulation in all of these bureaucracies, redundancy. You got programs and people that you could get rid of 50% of and not affect the objective of these programs. Why make the high earners and the achievers in this country, why put the onus on them? The only way working people can get a tax cut is if we raise taxes on these people? It's unnecessary. And it's not right. You said going to drain the swamp? Drain the swamp. There's all, okay, you want to pay for a tax cut? Get rid of so much redundant government spending. Here is Jim in West Central Florida. Great to have you, sir. Welcome to EIB Network. Hi.
Thank you, Rush. So, directional gyro dittos, you know. I believe that many of the problems our country faces today at the root cause is the failed education system that has been ruined by the liberals because they've been running it so long. And then they go out to college, and then they graduate and become absent-minded, college-educated idiots, and they don't understand the definition of words. And they're socialist indoctrination centers, basically, is what it is.
I think not only is that true, we had a column by Walter Williams earlier this week in which research and studies indicated that way too many high school graduates today and college freshmen have an 8th grade level of education. 8th grade. They're adults, but they're 8th grade in their knowledge and so forth. It's nobody would disagree with you on that at all. The best tax plan, folks, the best tax plan for the United States economy is a tax plan that takes the most money out of wasteful government bureaucracies and programs and puts that money back into the economy in the form of a tax cut. You let people keep more of what they earn, you shrink government, get rid of unnecessary, burdensome regulations, which Trump has made a good start at, but there's still so much. They say that, well, it's all entitlement, Rush. You can't cut that. So much bureaucracy, you can cut it in half and not impact a thing in terms of precious government services. Anyway, you take the most money you can out of government, you put that back into the economy so the economy can grow. You can't grow an economy if you take money out of it. And any tax cut for the middle class that is paid for by taking the same amount of money away from other Americans, is not going to grow the economy. It can't. The numbers aren't there. It's mathematics. And this is what Trump meant when he said he wanted to make America great again by making America rich again. America gets this. You can't take. You can't cut some people's taxes and let them keep more of what they earn, and then say we're going to pay for that by increasing taxes on some Americans because you're taking that same amount of money back out. While you put it in, you're taking it back out. If it must be paid for, and so the economy does not grow, you're not putting additional dollars into the economy. So people say, well, why is Trump doing this? Very simple, folks. Populism. Let me cut to the chase. Trump believes that this is what his voters want. Everybody thinks that the rich need to be punished. This is an axiom in politics that's way older than the U.S. The rich are perennially resented and unpopular, and nobody is going to have any sympathy for them if their taxes are raised. It's quite the opposite. Most people think that the way you build a bond of relatability to people, the way you strengthen your attachment to voters is tell them you're looking out for them and you're going to get the other guys. It's the way the Democrats have always done it. But every party, every politician will come along, but we're gonna increase taxes on the rich. They don't need it. Remember Richard Gephardt? We had a soundbite of Richard Gephardt, Democrat congressman from Missouri. He actually said during a speech supporting tax increases on the rich as a way to grow the economy. Imagine that. Tax increases on the rich to grow the economy. Gephardt said, I have a friend, and my friend told me that if you really want to make me rich, you'll raise my taxes. Remember that soundbite? We're sitting here scratching our heads over that because patently untrue. It is fabulously false. There isn't a rich guy around that will tell anybody, you want to make me rich? You want to make me richer? Then you'll raise my tax. If that were the case, the rich would be firing their tax accountants and they would be paying more than they owe. If that's the route to wealth, then that's what the rich would be doing. But it isn't, is it? The rich are the people using every legal advantage they can find in the tax code to not pay taxes. And by the way, that becomes a story, and so soaking the rich is a very popular thing for any politician to promise or to say he's going to do. But I'm going to tell you, if you're sitting out there in the middle class and you're told that your tax cut is going to be paid for by somebody else's taxes going up, you should realize that doesn't mean the economy is going to grow. And usually the people whose taxes are going up are the people you hope will hire you someday or give you a raise. And now back to the phones. We're eventually going to get to Rush sound bites from Hannity last night. And there's a whole half show again tonight of Hannity and me. That interview went at least 45 minutes or longer. And they're using elements of it twice. I noticed the way they're editing and cutting it up. No, it's not a complaint. I'm just explaining. I can't tell you what's going to air tonight because they're not airing it chronologically as it was taped. They're taking elements here, playing it like they played elements from the second, well, what would be the second half of the interview last night. So, which is fine. They're tailoring it to what else is being talked about on the program. And they're running it all during the day today on Fox. But there's the whole Hannity show tonight is going to be the second half of the interview with me. Here is Joanne in Deposit, New York. Welcome. Great to have you here. Open Line Friday.
Great job last night.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Today.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I enjoy watching you on TV. Love it.
You know what somebody said to me today, Joanne? I mean, not to talk about me. You've done that plenty.
But I like talking about you. I like listening what you have to say, even if it's about yourself. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, it was the chef today. It was the chef. You know what's great is watching you think out loud. People don't get to watch you think on radio, but you're obviously. And then somebody else said, you don't even pause for a second to think what you're going to say. You already know you just launch with it. And, of course, these are things I don't even think about.
It's that great mind of yours. That's what it is.
Yeah, I guess so.
I wish I had half your brain. But, well, I have a question about the NFL.
Okay.
I know nothing about football. I probably know less than nothing. But from a business point of view, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, aren't these owners being bullied by their employees? Because if I work, there's no way I'm going to tell my boss what I'm going to do and what not to do. I'm expected to do a job, and if I have to sign a contract, I know ahead of time what's expected of me. These are adult men that have watched football since they were little boys.
Many of them have an 8th grade education, though.
It's just, I'm sitting here going, how come these owners are banding together and say, wait a minute, we're as a team.
Let me explain this to you. This is actually, Joanna, great question. This is a great perspective. Somebody that doesn't know the game, doesn't watch the game, admits that she knows less than nothing about it. And so her question is pure. Her question is, why are the bosses letting the employees do this to the product? Exactly. I addressed it. Joanne, the answer is the owners are scared to death. They have two choices. Side with the employees who are doing what they're doing, and then maybe even look like they support it, or side with the customers, the fans. If they side with the players as they're doing, what's happening? Fans are watching less. Attendance is down. The image of the game is taking a huge hit. The owners make a calculation. If they side with the fans, then that is going to infuriate the players as a sign of lack of support. They're going to say this confirms what we're saying, that we do not have equality and that we're not treated fairly. And if the players decide not to show up, then there's no game. If the fans don't show up, the game's still played and it's still on TV. But if the players don't show, and if they keep on not showing, so the owners make this calculation. They're in a to a certain extent a no-win situation. I think in most of these owners' cases, they can't afford not to express solidarity. That's why more owners than you've ever seen are on the field during the pregame, kneeling, linking. I have often believed, no, I should not say this, it's going to be something perfectly, totally true, but it's so distracting it might get me into trouble. But let's put it this way. When 75% of your employees are of a particular race, and that particular race is expressing grievances all over our country with things that are unjust and unfair, and if 75% of your employees are joining that way of thinking, and you want to keep your team together, and you want the management to think that the management has their players back, you have to join them. That's their thinking. You have to join them, whether they agree with it or not. Now, not all owners did. Not all owners issued a statement. Not all owners reacted to Trump. There's a whole 5 or 6 of them who didn't. And the media jumped right on them and asked why and started speculating they must be Trump supporters, and they were in the crosshairs. The media tried to do them great damage for not joining their players in this display of whatever it is. But the bottom line here is that the league is being harmed, and it is my contention that there are those who seek that very thing. And I've chronicled it since the first time I noticed it, for 2 or 3 years ago, when I detected the media was spending more time pointing out the flaws and the problems with the league than they were reporting on the actual games and the exploits of the athletes who play it. And I issued a warning at that time that the very media covering this game, i.e. promoting it, creating interest about it, is helping harm it. And that has only continued with the manufacturing of the making of movies. And how about the news that 100 out of 111 players in a random survey have irreversible brain damage because they played football? What are you going to... I mean, they've created an aura, even among people watching the game, of nervousness and anxiety, and it's just not the same. It just isn't. It's all been manufactured and created because liberalism has found its way. The tentacles are deep and they're tangled, and its web is now interwoven deeply into the NFL. And when the left does this, they corrupt whatever they touch by politicizing it. And that's what we are seeing. So now the damage is obvious, that the owners and the management of the league, they sided as they had to, but it's harming them. So now everybody's trying to backtrack, and now teams are announcing in advance, we're standing this Sunday, notice us, we're standing, we're not going to kneel. See us, we're going to stand. Other players are saying, it's not the flag. We're not protesting the flag. We're not protesting America. Yes, you are. It's whether you know it or not. That's what you're doing. If you're supporting Kaepernick, that's what he was doing. It's a sad, sad situation. But this is not unique, Joanne. It is rare in professional sports that owners actually punish players for things like this. They side with it. The owners can't do without them. Even though they're a dime a dozen, it's a unique situation here. If the players sit down, it doesn't matter whether people show up or not. And if the players sit down, even more fans are not going to show when they come back, if it's especially about this. I appreciate the call. We've got more after this. Salon.com, missing in action. Why hasn't Trump ordered the military to Puerto Rico? It's 1,000 miles to get anybody there, and I don't think they can land heavy aircraft in Puerto Rico yet. But Trump is. There's all kinds of assistance heading into Puerto Rico. This is another example of the Democrat Party or the American left not being able to innovate. 30-year-old playbook. Well, now it's a 40 or 50-year-old playbook, and they simply go to the right page. And how do you attack a Republican president? You wait for a disaster, claim he doesn't care. You wait for a disaster, claim he's a racist. You wait for a disaster, claim he doesn't care about the poor. You wait for a disaster, claim he has no compassion for anybody because he's a pig. Whatever it is, and they're trying to revive it. I don't know. There are times, folks, I actually think that this stuff is burning out. It isn't working. And I will admit that there's a lot of hope in that. But honestly, I look at the status. The media has thrown everything they've got. They've thrown things at Trump that they have not thrown at other people, Republicans. And none of it, well, I say none of it's worked. I'm sure that it has contributed to an ongoing image problem that Trump has among people who didn't vote for him. But it's not stopping him, is the point. It's not slowing Trump down. Trump is not affected by it, other than personally, and we don't know about that. But in terms of Trump getting up every day, going to work, and moving forward on his agenda, it's not causing a stoppage at all. And that's what they're really after. And to the extent that they're trying to damage Trump's image, that's for future elections where they hope to elect Democrats. Like, look at this. Politico. This is also a retread. Puerto Rican devastation could mean more Florida voters. Now, how is that? Well, As Puerto Rico slips deeper into what many call a humanitarian crisis, the island is primed for a mass exodus of what could be 1 million people, a sizable number of whom are expected to settle in Florida, the nation's biggest swing state. That could well prove to be a boon to Democrats in a state which the past 4 top-of-the-ticket races have been decided by about a percentage point. Marco Rigau, president of the San Juan Municipal Assembly, and forgive me if that's a mispronunciation, says it's going to mean a lot more people voting Democrat in Florida. San Juan, mostly Democrats, I guess they're assuming. But you see, this is the way the left looks at a tragedy is the real point. How's the left looking at this tragedy? How can this tragedy help the Democrat Party? You want to talk about cold? You want to talk about calculating? So we have an admitted humanitarian crisis. And here's Politico calculating how it can help the Democrat Party. Pelosi to Puerto Rico native, you came to America. House Democrats met to discuss the ongoing crisis in Puerto Rico caused by the Hurricane Maria. Pelosi contradicted herself when it was her turn to speak. She turned to Nydia Velázquez, Puerto Rican, and she took the podium after Velázquez. Pelosi claimed that Velázquez came to America when she moved from Puerto Rico to New York. You were born and raised there. You came to America. You became a stark figure here. That's what she said. You became one of the first women to chair an entire committee in Congress, United States, Pelosi said. You came to America. You came to America. These people are just, their worldview is distorted. It is perverted. Okay, to the audio sound bites. They've been after me here on the staff to get to these, and I always keep putting it off. But we're going to replay some of the sound bites from last night's interview on the Fox News Channel with Hannity at 9 o'clock. And this is right at the top. Hannity says, I want to start with tax cuts. All the years you've talked about it, Kennedy, Reagan, how it works. What do you think of this latest tax plan?
It's good overall. I mean, there's some things about it. Let's look at the elimination of the deduction of state income tax. You know who's going to hate that? California, Illinois, all these blue states. That's going to cause a shortfall for them. Those taxpayers are not going to like it. And if you look at the states with the highest state income tax rates, most of them are blue. But here's my basic problem with this. I keep hearing everybody say growth, growth. But the top rate probably isn't going to come down or much at all. And that's where the growth is. Those are the people that hire. Those are the people that own small business. Those are the people that spend. We still have a tax system and a way of explaining it that's rooted in class envy. We're going to give the middle class, the lower middle class, upper middle class a break, but the rich, we're going to soak them. They don't need a tax break. They don't got enough. And besides, they say we have to have a way to pay for it. What do you mean pay for it? Why can't Washington do it less? For once, we got growth from Reagan. I saw you talking about it last night. How? Top marginal rate over 8 years went 70 to 28%. Look what happened. Why not do it again? The reason is everybody's afraid they'll lose votes in the middle class because there's far more of them than there are people in the upper bracket. The top 10% are paying 70% of all income taxes, and how can you say they're not paying their fair share, and why do we want to punish them further? If you really want growth, lower everybody's taxes across the board and get out of the way for all the revenues going to be coming in.
That's not what we're doing. Again, the president just today in a speech to the National Association of Manufacturers actually said we have given Congress flexibility to even create a new rate on the super rich in order to pay for greater tax relief for the middle class. So that what he means by that is the middle class, the only way you're going to get a tax cut is if we increase taxes on others of your fellow citizens. And I think that's a net wash. If you're going to cut taxes, otherwise allow some to keep more of what they earn, and you're going to, quote-unquote, pay for that by raising taxes on others, it's a wash. you're not going to end up with additional dollars of any significance in the economy. And what do I think of the Limbaugh delivery? I don't know. I was a little too fast. I was trying to say, you know, I get caught up. One of the problems I have at TV is I know that time is really limited. Even this interview, even though they said we're going to do half of it tonight, half of it tomorrow night, I still know he wants to cover a lot of things. And so I'm racing through my answer to make room for other things, the other side. So if I had to critique this, I would say that I had my speech was a little too rapid fire. You don't think so? Well, fine. I mean, you're asking me to critique myself, and that's, but in terms of the substance, I can't find a thing wrong with it. In terms of the substance, I mean, that's 5 stars right there. Nothing needs to be added to that, even though I just did here, but I added to it because the president has said more. Then this is one of the bites that I've been playing for guests all day on Fox and asking people to react to it. The question from Hannity, you actually said that if the GOP were smart, all they would do is keep their promises and all that. They could end up running Washington for generations.
This is the deal. I really believe that if for just 3 months going forward, or if they had been 3 months in the past, just 3 months, gut it up for 3 months and work with Trump on his agenda, on cutting taxes seriously across the board, immigration reform, the wall, what have you, getting rid of Obamacare, which is just, it's an absolute crime what has happened here and what that's going to mean to the country. Just try for 3 months. Make it look like there's unity between the president and the people of his own party, and they would own Washington for a generation.
Let me reiterate that. Again, nothing wrong with the substance there. And another 5-star soundbite. And, in fact, the pace of speech was fine there. Wasn't racing through that. But imagine, folks, if the daily picture out of Washington was McConnell and Ryan and Trump working together, unified on an agenda that's Trump's. I mean, he's the guy that has the mandate. He won the election on it. And it looks like we don't even need to wait to see if it succeeds, although it needs to. But even if it looks like that there is mutual respect and excitement and eagerness to get these things done, that is going to unify the Republican base beyond Trump voters in a way the Democrats can't compete with. It's going to revive talk about how the Democrats don't have a prayer of gaining ground in the House or Senate in 2018. I really believe if this appearance of unity that had a foundation of truth propping it up, the pictures, the accompanying news stories, the attitude, the smiles, if this were happening, majority of Americans want the Trump agenda. Even if you don't think that's true, act like it is. That's what the Democrats do. The Democrats and media act like the cockamamie stuff they believe is accepted by a majority. We need to do it because in our case, it's largely true. If that happened, I don't think the Democrats would stand a prayer because they can't compete with it. All they can do is nitpick it and trash it and slime it in ways that will seem empty, because it's going to be old and predictable. Not unify the whole country, don't misunderstand. We're talking about creating a political force here that can't be stopped. And I really think it's possible to do. But it's not going to happen if the perception continues that half of the Republican establishment doesn't want Trump to succeed. The same problems are going to continue as exist now. You take that perception off the board. You take the perception off the board the Republicans don't want Trump to win and replace it with we Republicans have an agenda and we can't wait to implement it for the good of America. Get out of the way, folks. There'd be no stopping them. And I'm not exaggerating about that. I'm not pie in the sky. It's a once in our lifetime's opportunity to have the confluence of events that happened last November because so much happened. It wasn't just that Trump won, and it wasn't just the Republicans have the House and the Senate. It was that what the Democrats stand for was rejected. There are two things that happened here. Republicans are victorious because of Trump. Trump was victorious, but at the same time, what the Democrats stand for was rejected, as it has been rejected in elections since 2010. That's why I say it's just a tremendous opportunity. Now, I want to jump forward to soundbite number 6. Newt was on Hannity afterwards, and I've got to play this because it was so great. It was, well, in fact, let's play both of them. Rather than talk about it, play number 5. After the interview was over, Hannity brought Newt on. Newt had a great visual aid. He had a postcard-size piece of paper. He said, this is what the Republican tax plan, tax reform will look like. And if they just run around the country saying, wouldn't you like to be able to do your taxes on this? It can't fail. And he had a good point. But listen to what else he said.
Without Rush, we might not have won in 1994. He was the clear voice for millions and millions of conservatives all across the country, many of whom would stay in their car to listen to the last half hour, or they just wouldn't get out. They wouldn't give him up. So Rush has had a remarkable historic impact on the country, and his instincts are as good as they ever were, and he's as worth listening to and thinking about as anybody I know, and he analyzes things from angles nobody else can match. If by Thanksgiving the Paul Ryan income tax postcard becomes law, I think you're going to find out that they are doing exactly what Rush suggested. I think this is the start of what Rush is talking about.
And that is the Republicans coming together with Trump on an agenda. And he thinks tax reform is it. Now, that was last night. Now, today, Newt, by the way, that's great. This next soundbite's not to be critical. But Newt is exactly right in what he said there, the factual things, and I'm appreciative as I can be of his compliments there. I really am. I was watching it last night, and I got a little tightness in the throat, to be honest with you. I was choking up. But then this morning, after the bite where I say, if they just work together for 3 months. Everybody played that. Newt had a little bit different take, just slightly, and this is what he said.
As much as I admire Rush, and we've known each other many years, I think he's a half step behind what's happening. Are there some never-Trumpers? Sure. Are there some people who cause trouble? Sure. But let me give you an example. This is the postcard tax form that 85% of Americans will be able to file under the new Republican tax plan. Literally a postcard. Now, that was developed by the Trump White House, by the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans as a team. They launched it this week as a team. I think that they've learned a lot of painful lessons over the last 9 months.
Okay, so he thinks I'm a half step behind because I was still last night saying if they would just come together on the agenda. And Newt's point is they have. This is the first attempt at them coming together on the agenda. Well, let me take a break, and I'll continue. But I've got to take the break. I am the mayor of Realville. Now, Newt says, and he did it affectionately. He said, as much as I admire Rush, we've known each other many years, I think he's a half step behind what's happening here. Last night I said it would be great if the Republicans would unify and start moving Trump's agenda. And Newt says they have. And I didn't recognize or make note of that last night. Well, right now, this is so tough. We've been here before. Although healthcare was a little different, it didn't appear to be a unified effort like this does appear to be. Although I don't know where the Senate is on this. It's always the wild card. And it's always where the establishment powers go when they want to stop Trump. So we'll see. I think the jury is still out. But I'm not going to deny that this is a an appearance of unity, but at some point there's going to have to be something other than appearances. There's going to have to be actual solid results. I'm patiently waiting. I'm not going to proclaim that this is a failure or isn't being done the wrong way, anything of the sort. I wouldn't presume to do that. I'm just waiting. I think, what are the odds? Let's put it to you this way. Think of it this way. The tax plan was presented this week, and the president's out there selling the aspects of it that he likes and that he thinks are persuasive. What are the odds that, because a lot of this, I had it explained to me by a powerful ranking Republican, that the committees are going to be making final decisions on a lot of details here. Well, that means that things are going to change from day one. And if those things change in ways that lose support here or lose support there, we don't know if that's going to happen yet or not. We have to withhold judgment until it does. That's all I'm saying. Like the iPhone, the iPad, or used to be the NFL. I just thoroughly enjoy doing that. That's why I tell you about Boll & Branch sheets and bed products, because I've experienced these things. And I was like everybody else when I heard these sheets are different. Come on, they're sheets, and when you're in them, you're asleep. You're essentially unconscious. What? Even if they are that great, how can it possibly matter? I went into this a total doubting Thomas, and then I got a set and put them on the bed, and I did a 180 on them. They are different. They cost you $1,000 in a department store or more. They're just the best organic cotton, the greatest feeling of getting into, particularly after a long hot day. You take a shower before you get in bed, you dry off, get in there. It's different. It really is. Several years ago, relatives and family and friends of a couple in New Jersey started receiving gifts of bed sheets. These people were passionate about this. They started making them for themselves and then making them for friends and gave them away as Christmas presents and for other occasions. High-end sheets made of pure organic cotton, and they instantly got rave reviews and thank yous from the recipients, along with an inquiry on where they could buy them. Where'd you get these? And they said, well, we make them. If you buy these at a store, they would cost you probably four figures. And people, really? Yeah. But the people they gave them to initially loved them so much that they wanted to share them with people. And so they asked this couple to make another set or two for them. And that's how Boll & Branch sheets and bedding started, the wave of popularity that now includes many of you and me and several presidents as well. Boll & Branch makes sheets and bedding and now towels as well. And they use blends of pure organic cotton that have proven to only get softer and more comfortable with each usage. Now, it's not that they have things nobody else does. That's not the claim. You can experience things like this in a 5-star hotel suite. It's not that they don't, it's not that you can't find this stuff anywhere else. It's that you can't get it at this price. You'll find the products in department stores, but not big box stores. You only get them from Boll & Branch at their website, bollandbranch.com, B-O-L-L, and branch.com. Two reasons for that. That's how they keep the price down, and it's also how they maintain a personal relationship with every customer. The feedback they get is invaluable. Every set of sheets comes with a 30-night guarantee, meaning that you can use them for a full month, and you can put them through whatever laundry process you use, and you can have your pets, if they sleep with you, you do all of that, and after 30 days, if they're not what you were led to believe, send them back, get a full refund. When I saw that guarantee, I said, that can't be. I mean, people would buy them and send them, just experience it for the month and then send them back for the money. But people don't send them back. Return rate's like 0.6%. There's literally, at the end of all that, no cost in trying if you do want to send them back. Boll & Branch, B-O-L-L. And additionally, use my name, save $50 on your first set. So instead of $1,000, we're talking $250. for the basic stock set. And they come in various sizes. Whatever you have, they'll have. BOLL, Boll and Branch. .com. Move forward to audio soundbite number 9. This was on America's Newsroom today. Shannon Bream was speaking with House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Republican, California. And she played a soundbite of my interview with Hannity last night and said there's criticism for Congress. Some of that is coming from Rush Limbaugh. What do you make of Rush's assertion that there are people, even within the GOP, who do not want the president to succeed?
I don't happen to be one of those, and I don't know where one is. I'm frustrated with what happens on the Senate side. We now have 270 bills sitting in the Senate. So I have that exact same frustration. And I've watched and worked with this president every day, and he's been engaged. He's done everything in his power to try to get this through. And why would the Senate make everything have to be 60 votes? If the House can pass it with the majority, why can't the Senate pass it with the majority? That's really where it's coming down to, and it's affecting everyone.
All right, now this is fascinating to me, and Fox is doing this on their own. Limbaugh says that there are Republicans that don't want Trump to succeed. It's not just Republicans. It's the Democrats don't want Trump to succeed. Some of the Republicans don't. Most of the establishment doesn't. For the reason I said last night, and you've heard me say it before, it's no more complicated. Trump, to them, is a neophyte, know-nothing outsider. They can't permit somebody like that to come in there and inside of 2 years turn it upside down and make it work. What does that make them look like? Plus, what does that do to the game they have structured that keeps themselves in power in perpetuity by not really accomplishing much? They're not going to let somebody come in and just blow that up. This is their life. This is their self-identity. This is their fortune. It's their wealth, being in that club, being in the establishment, the power structure that runs the country. And they're going to let somebody they think is a pig and a reprobate come in there and make fun of them and turn what they've done upside down to make it work. There's no question that there are people inside that town that do not want him to succeed. They're in the deep state. Where do you think all these leaks in the newspaper and the media about the collusion with Russia came from? There's all kinds of people they're trying to destroy Trump even now with a Mueller investigation. You know it and I know it. And McCarthy knows it, even though his answer, well, I don't happen to be one of those, and I don't know where one is. Except in the Senate. There's all kinds of people in the Senate. And I must say that when the ranking Republican explained the tax bill to me, I got the same thing before I even said anything. And let me tell you something, Rush. Our problems in the Senate. Do you realize how frustrated we are here? We pass bill after bill after bill, the first health care bill, and it goes over there and it just dies. I can't tell you, we got 200 bills over there. Nobody knows it because it doesn't get reported, and they go over there and they die. So the Republican leadership is very, very intent on everybody understanding that it isn't them bottling up the Trump agenda, that it is the Senate. And I think people get that on their own anyway. But essentially what I said is acknowledged. It happens to be the case, and I'm glad it's out there. I'm not the only one saying it, but for some reason, me saying it on Fox and then played back a soundbite for these guys to react to. Bingo. Now back to the phones. This is Patty, Newport Beach, California. Glad you waited. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, and good morning, and thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I wanted to start by saying that you were impressive on Sean Hannity, of course you were, and that I can only beg you to do more live interviews on television in the future.
Thank you.
You can see that you've had a big impact. And you're, like Trump, a leader. You're, like Trump, extremely coherent, speak well, make a great impression, and you get to the point. I think it would be very beneficial to the conservative cause if you could do more of what you did with Sean Hannity. I just would hope you would do that. That's before my comment, but I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and one more thing.
Yes.
Newt Gingrich is wrong. You are not a step behind. You are a step ahead of him. And that annoyed me when I heard it.
Don't be annoyed. There are reasons for that. Newt's fine. Newt's cool. He wants the same thing you do. He's great.
Okay, good. My comment today was that my husband has been a medical professor of medicine for decades, is now retired, and one of the things he's doing is in his semi-retirement is being a medical director of a specialty testing lab. Among other things, this lab is testing for, and it will be a simple blood test for the brain, the traumatic brain injury that comes from the kind of injuries and things that come.
You're talking about CTE. Is your husband working on the project to try to find a way to diagnose it while the patient is alive? Right now, you can only diagnose it.
Yes, that's the idea. The idea they can draw blood when the patient is alive. And I asked him, of course, I've been over the months been asking for details. He said that the test is still unreliable, but he is sure that in the future there will be such a test. It will be a blood test. He said something about the word exosomes.
Well, I'm wondering how they're ever going to know, because you can only identify it in an autopsy. So
no, they're biochemical reasons that you'll be able to do it ahead of time. So they will be able to do that.
Okay, cool.
So go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I had a question. You answered it. What is the point about this that your husband is learning?
The point about my call is that because of that, and because it happens anyway, and you can test for it in an autopsy, eventually the NFL is in danger of being sued into oblivion. And I asked my husband, well, what about college football? They don't have such big, deep pockets. They won't be sued so much. And he said, no, colleges still have deep enough pockets.
Oh, they do.
He said, however, he said, the players play for a shorter amount of time.
Right.
Because
Patty, here's the thing about this. You are so right in one way that this is already being seen as a financial goldmine. Does the name Aaron Hernandez mean anything to you? 27 years old, convicted of murder, former tight end for the New England Patriots. 27. He committed suicide in prison. His lawyer now says that they discovered in an autopsy he had an advanced case of CTE. They're trying to say that his commission of murder was not his fault. He had brain injury because of his playing for the New England Patriots. So that's a sign of where the legal community is going to take this. So Aaron Hernandez in death is going to try, his estate's going to try and sue and be exonerated. Now, Patty, the NFL has already agreed to, they have established a pool of $1 billion from which all claimants of CTE are going to have to make their case. The NFL thinks their exposure to this, therefore, is a total of $1 billion. I ran the numbers on this, and every player, even now, and adding the same numbers for the next 10 years, who makes a claim that is judged legal is going to get $137,000 or something, which is nothing. The league thinks they have already, as a matter of doing business, limited their liability on this because they have an agreement with a court that their liability maximum exposure is $1 billion. Now, that's going to be, somebody's going to try to reopen that because they've opened the door to it now. And if we're going to have deceased players' families claiming that she's right. The NFL's got an exposure problem here, and we'll see how this. They know that. But the people now are signing up and installing Simply Safe systems. You know why? Because they work, and it's simple, and after you install it, you know it. It's not some installation by somebody else, and you have to call them if there's a problem or you don't understand it or what. This you put in yourself. It's very, very simple. You have an intimate awareness of it. You know where all the sensors are because you put them there. And it's just a matter of stick them off the back and putting them on the doors and windows you want to secure. You have motion sensors you can deploy anywhere in the house. Sensors that detect breaking glass. If you want to deploy some HD cameras, and you can contact your system anytime you want on an app on your phone. You can watch your house when you're not away, inside and out, depending on where you have cameras, with the app. Simply Safe makes the first home security on the market that you actually control. You are the installer and the operator, but don't let that fool you. The reason it's simple is there aren't any wires. You need people to install because you need people to brick out the walls and then run and snake the wires behind them to put the walls back, and then all that has to be tested. This doesn't do that. This uses Wi-Fi and cellular, so burglars can't clip your wires outside the home and render the system ineffectively. It's ineffective. It's amazingly reliable, and it's intuitive. And using it every day is easy and engaging. There's a base station in the house that all of the sensors communicate with, and the cameras. And if there's a violation, intrusion, you can have this base station get hold of the police, the monitoring center, for $14.99 a month. Month to month. There's no long-term contract to sign, and it isn't $50 or $55 a month. Go online and see this. Millions of Americans are now using Simply Safe home security systems. The website, simplysafeusa.com. Website's exclusively for you in this audience. No promo codes are needed for savings. You can see a couple of their stock systems, if you want, on the shelves of Best Buy. But the website is where you see everything they've got. simplysafeusa.com. Back here on Monday talking about whatever